Welcome to Tuesday with Terry, the podcast for getting your mind, business, and life in shape. Hosted by Terry Blachek, one of the original area developers for Orange Theory Fitness who helped launch the brand from the very beginning. He'll use his years of experience to help you shape up your mind, build strong relationships with your teams, revamp your business processes, and set down the path towards success in all aspects of your life.
Good morning, everybody. My name's Terry, and welcome to another episode, a podcast, Tuesday with Terry. I'm talking to you live from Austin, Texas, where the sun is hot, the barbecue is sweet, and all the drinks are free on over here. So come on over. We'd love to have you. Be our guest. Today, I want to talk with you a little bit about referrals and getting referrals. I'll tell you, it's one of the best ways to grow your business. You've heard of local word-of-mouth marketing, but, you know, referral business is just an incredible way. We in our business, we ask people, how'd you hear about us? And without exception, people always say, I heard it from a friend. And that's really what we were trying to find out is what marketing did they see for the business. And when we ask that question, without exception, always people say, sometimes they'll say, I saw your sign, but most of the time they'll say, I heard about it from a friend. So I call this, how full is your referral bucket, right? And I talk about buckets in the sales process. You've got lead generation, you've got contacting the prospect, and then you have appointment, usually some type of an appointment setting process, and then you have some type of a presentation that would probably follow that in some category, and then you get into the transactional part of it, like of closing the sale. But one of the pieces that you got to take a look at is these buckets, right? So you have a bucket of leads, you've got a bucket of contacts, you've got a bucket of appointments, you've got a bucket of presentations, and then you have your bucket of sales. And I say this a lot in our group is, you can't have a little tiny bucket of leads, a small baby bucket of appointments, and a small bucket of presentations, and expect to have a lot of sales. You need a big bucket of leads. You got to have a lot of leads, man. I'm telling you, you got to get a lot of them. You got to have a lot of appointments. I mean, this is a numbers game, right? It's a volume game. You got to have a lot of presentations, and you close those, and that's where you make a lot of sales. But one of the ways to get a big bucket of leads is to fill up your referral bucket. And I think, first of all, you have to understand that, if you're going to build your business, you have to have a mindset of, I've got to ask and get referrals. You know this, if you do it consistently, it works. Good habits consistently grow your business, right? What do they say? Inch by inch, it's a cinch. Yard by yard, it's hard. So do you have the right mindset, right? So what does that mean? Oh, maybe you say, yeah, I have the right mindset. I ask for referrals. But what if you have a team of people? Are they actually asking for referrals? Is your team doing it? Is everybody doing it? Or are just you doing it? So in order to get that, you might want to ask your team some of these questions. Do you understand or have an attitude of leverage, right? Where you're constantly looking for ways to leverage your relationships with new and existing customers. In our business, we call those members, but for you, if you're not in the health club business, you would call those your customers. Are you looking for ways to leverage those relationships? Number two is, do you understand that you become more referable if you develop a trust relationship with your prospects and your customers? I mean, as long as they trust you, right, you become more referable. And isn't that what you really want? Do you also understand that new prospects prefer to meet you through their friends? Did you know that? You might think you're the friendliest guy, best looking, out there. But the reality is most people would rather meet you through one of their friends. And that is what gives you instant, immediate credibility. Are you always looking for opportunities to ask for referrals? And do you expect to get them? I have some people that ask for referrals, but they go, well, we just never get them. We don't get them. I just don't. Nobody wants to give us any of their friends and tell us any of their friends' names. No, you ask, but you actually expect that you get them versus hoping to get them. And the last one here is, do you really have a system or a process to do it? I got to tell you, your current customers are some of the best people and sources for your new customers, right? And you know this because why is that? Why are your current customers? Number one, they know you, they like you, they have established rapport with you, they have confidence in you, they trust you. I mean, they respect you, they use your product or service, they return your calls, right? You call them, at least they call you back, right? They're your customer. And guess what? They pay you. How cool is that, right? Those are your best guys. Why aren't you milking your own cows, right? I say that a lot. My grandfather was a farmer, and he used to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and go down and milk the cows. I grew up in the country in northeast Pennsylvania. But can you imagine my grandfather getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning, jumping in his pickup and driving 10 or 20 miles down the road and milking somebody else's cows? I mean, why in the world would you do that? He would never do that, right? Probably get shot if he was doing that. He'd go milk his own cows. And that's what I'm saying is you got to milk your own cows, meaning you got to ask your own customers for those referrals. So when do you do it? When's the best time to do it? Let me share that with you. Is when somebody says, thanks, man, I really appreciated that. That's a perfect opportunity right then to ask and talk to them about referrals. If you solve a problem or you fix a problem that one of your customers had, you're fixing the problem and you resolved it and you took care of it. A lot of times we do that in the back office, but yet we're not asking for referrals. Another one is you stay in contact with people, right? You call them on a regular basis. I'm going to talk about that in just a second, but you call them on a regular basis. And because you're talking to them and you're staying in communication, it's easier to ask. And you want to make sure that you always have built rapport with the customer before you ask. So if you're going to do some asking, what do you got to do? Number one is you got to get up off your backside. Okay, you really got to do it, right? You can't just talk about it. You can't give it lip service. You really, really got to do it, right? And so how do you do that, right? In our business, in the health club business, in the membership business, we tell people to get out there and meet people, meet and greet, right? And how do you do that? The best way, I remember this from a friend of mine. I went from a teaching job when I was 27 to New York City, the World Trade Center. And I remember when I went into the World Trade Center, I had a friend of mine, his name was Travis Crawford, and he said, he's just a super friendly guy, right? And he could talk, it felt like that guy could talk to anybody about anything. And so when I went into New York City, one of the things I said to myself is, I'm going to be really, really friendly. And I remember when I was a kid, my dad told me, if you want to have friends, you got to be friendly, right? So being friendly simply means is you're a little outgoing and you always introduce yourself first. And so I would tell you, if you're trying to make friends or you're trying to meet people, don't wait for somebody to come up to you and introduce themselves to you. You go up to them and you say, hey, good afternoon. My name's Terry, and maybe your title or maybe where you're from. I'm from Austin, Texas. Or, hey, my name's Terry. I'm from, Orange Theory Fitness. But do the introduction first, right? You want to make friends, you got to introduce yourself first. So another thing you can do is plant seeds, right? Planting seeds when you talk to people after you've met them and you made a friend. So people even say that to me. They say, Terry, I don't know what you mean. How do you mean make a friend, right? That sounds silly. How do you make a friend? Well, you create conversation that has nothing to do with anything personal, right? So you can have a conversation about the weather. You can have conversation about traffic. You can have conversation about directions, right? You can have a conversation about how they like your product or your service, right? How are things going? But what you want to make sure you're doing is planting seeds. And what that really means is when you're talking to somebody, before you leave, you can say, hey, can you do me a favor? And don't keep me a secret to some of your friends and family members. Here's my card, if you have a card. If you don't, get something, put your name, your number on it. Say, listen, maybe you know somebody that could use our product or our service. I'd love to have you introduce them to me. And that's just a way for you to plant a seed and let people know that you're actively looking to solicit a referral. You can never be too busy, right? Never be too busy to help friends and family members that have similar needs. And that's how you can say it. John, I'm never too busy to help some of your friends or family members if they have some similar needs to you. I'd love to show them around over here. I'd love to have them come and talk to me or maybe try the product. And it's always good to talk to people about that you're trying to build your business. People appreciate that. They respect it. They understand it, that it's hard to build a business. So a lot of times people say, well, I can't think of anybody. I can't think of anybody. And say, let me ask you a question. If your best friend or one of your family members were to walk in here today, do you think you would feel comfortable enough to introduce me to them? And most of the time, a person would say, yes, I do. Say, well, that's fantastic. Maybe you could introduce them to me another way. And what's the other way? The other way is basically, put their contact name if they're comfortable. Some people are more comfortable than others, but put their contact name down. And what I'd like to do is I'd like to call them up and offer them an opportunity to come in and talk to me. And I'm going to tell them that you actually referred them, that you brought up their name and you were the one to recommend them. Would that be okay? So that's really all you have to do. It's not a difficult process. You just have to do it. Now, another thing you can do is getting referrals is you can create some kind of a certificate, a VIP friends and family certificate, right? And it could look any way that you want it to. Make it look nice, put a little graphics on there, and call it a VIP friends and family certificate. And all that simply is that when you're talking to somebody or you're doing a transaction or you're closing a sale or somebody said, thank you, all the things I just mentioned, when's the best time? But when that happens, you have that certificate and you pull it out and you talk about the certificate. And simply what you say is, one of the things I would like to do is get an opportunity to chat with some of your friends about some of these same things. And if you would be so kind as to jot down, you got your cell phone on you there. All of us have 200 contacts in our cell phone. Look through your cell phone and see if you can help me out. I'm really trying to grow my business. And I'd like to give them an opportunity to come in for a complimentary visit. It's absolutely free and there's no charge. I'll treat them just as good as I did you. And you pull that certificate out and then give them a few minutes to kind of scroll through their phone. You don't have to be hawking over them. You can kind of walk away and let them go, right? Another way to get referrals is through what we call status calls. We do something in our business called 7, 14, and 21-day calls. And what that really is, it's a systematic way to follow up with your new clients. And 7 days after they do a transaction, we call them and ask them how things are going. We ask them for a status. Were you sore in your first workout? How did it go in your second workout? How many times have you gotten in the last 7 days, right? 14-day call. How's it going? Are we sticking to the program? 21 days. Man, I tell you got to be feeling a little bit better now that you've done this for 3 weeks, 21 days. So you're basically calling them every week for 3 weeks. And it's systematically, you do that over and over. And what you can bring up is say, listen, I know that when we saw you and we did the transaction or when you signed up, that you had an opportunity to invite 5 of your closest friends or family members. And you gave me 3 names, but I'm wondering if in the last 7, 14, or 21 days, did you think of anybody else? Did you have lunch with anybody? And you do this memory jogger thing, right? Did you have lunch with anybody? Did you play tennis? Did you play golf? Did you go shopping with anybody? Who'd you have coffee with last week, man? Maybe they would be interested in hearing a little bit more about what we're trying to do. I want to remind you, I'm trying to build my business. So that's the status calls. One of the things we try to do is actively work out with our members too. I think that's powerful. I think that, when a coach can actively work out with a member, it creates a relationship with them and they spend an hour. You may not be able to spend an entire hour with somebody, but try to use your product or service, demonstrate or show or actively do that with them. You go to buy a car. What does the guy do? They go for a test drive and they ride in the car with you, right? So they're spending time with you. And when you spend time with people, they feel like they're trusting you, they're getting to know you, and they feel indebted to you. Those are great times to ask for referrals. Just want to say this to kind of wrap it up is, number one is, do you have a referral mindset? Do you expect to get those referrals? Make sure that you understand and know the value of your own customers, your own members. Milk your own cows. It's powerful. It's a way to go, always. And finally, do you have a system or a process to actively solicit for referrals. You need to have something in place so that you don't forget it and so that you can teach the rest of your team how to do that as well. And you've heard me say this many times, but I'm going to close with this. If you want to change some things in your life, you're going to have to change some things in your life. Now is the time to start making some of those changes of receiving the benefits and getting more referrals. My name's Terry. I'm your friend. Thanks for being with me today, Tuesday with Terry.